Let us have a look at the loops, the three different type of loops that we use in JavaScript. The first one is, I'll get rid of the for loop, the counter loop. The for loop has a structure like this. For. Now what happens in, you you start with the counter. For example, for I is equal to 1 or 0, and we did this in arrays, and we did a lot of this in the class, but you start with the value, so that's your variable I equal to 1. JavaScript is very forgiving. If you don't put that, that's okay. I will leave it out just for the clarity of the code, okay, not uh, because it's technically correct, just for the clarity of the code. For I is equal to 1, and then we have a condition. As long as this I, and it's case sensitive, as long as this I is less than or equal to 100, increment I by 1. So I plus plus. As long as that's the case, and you can write, let's say you are doing a Bart Simpson and you have been told to write 100 times, I shall do my JavaScript homework. You can say document.write. I'm just going to do a Bart Simpson I, that will give the number because I've been told to write 100 times. I like JavaScript because I've been very naughty. I failed at JavaScript. So I, and then a full stop and space. I love JavaScript. And you see Bart Simpson writing this on the board all the time. I will not set the teacher's pants on fire and stuff like that, but here you go. Document. Right, let's see what this does. Okay. So I've got a starting value, a condition when it's going to stop, and it's going to increment. Okay. So let's see. Run this. There, oh, you can see from 1 to 100. And the teacher is not happy. She's given Bart detention again. That the writing is shabby. Go and write it another 100 times. I can't read it properly. So let's say put a break there, make the teacher happy, and voila. Yep, very clear. There is a bit of a plus there. JavaScript, yeah, and a break. No need. Teacher not happy. I put an extra plus sign. There you go. And just to make the teacher happier, I will write it 1,000 times. That's it. I'll write it. I love JavaScript and I shall pass JavaScript. Okay. There. So I've written it 1,000 times, and my teacher is very happy. And without taking an exam, he or she has passed me straight away just for writing this 1,000 times. But yeah, that's your for loop. And a for loop is really about doing something repeatedly. Let's make it more useful. Okay, let's make it more useful. Let's say I wanted to write out the times table. The times table is 7 times 1 equals 7, and so on. So I have to write 7 times 2 is equal to 14. So you can see the 7 times part is the same, and this I part is incrementing. And this is actually 7 multiplied by 1, and this is 7 multiplied by 2, which actually the program, the browser, can do for us, right? So let me just take one of these statements. I'm going to write out a 7 times table. I'm just trying to get some usefulness into the for loop, okay? And there are lots and lots of uses, but here's one. So document.write. Seven times 1 equal to, now it is 7 times I is equal, and this equal to is a part of my line, so that's going to be inside quotes, it's a string, plus 7 times I. Okay, now my string looks complete. See, 7x, then we'll put the number, and we don't need, let's say we're making it for kids, just up to 12 is enough. 7 times 1, 7 times 2, 7 times 3, and it will then put an equal to sign, and then it will concatenate a 7, and this is the actual operator, mathematical operator that we did. Why is it giving me an error? Document dot write 7 times, so I got a plus sign I and another plus sign. So yeah, you just got to be a bit careful, and sometimes you can't see the errors because of all the color coding, and hence it is advisable to use a text editor, the color coding of which you are familiar with. And many people like Sublime, some people like Dreamweaver, some people like Notepad++. But the whole idea is that you should be able to see the errors. And I don't mind Dreamweaver telling me that I have an error, and then I just look for it. But this is 7x, and then put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 till 12, and it should give me the product. So let's see this. So there you go. Not very clear. I need a break. So I'm just going to add a break plus. I'm just going to add a break tag. So that's a bit more, sensible. And you can do this into a number of ways. Of course, you can make this 16, and you will have a table of 16. Now, why only the 7 times table? It's not the 7 of diamonds, a magician's card. Why just 7? We should allow the user to tell us what times table the user wants. So before you start the for loop, you can do this. We can have a variable num and say we can prompt a user which times table would you like to generate, and then you can say example 7. I'll just leave it. Let them give me a number. I can parse it as an integer because I don't want anything else other than an integer. Parse int. So I'll just parse it as an integer. I can put an if, is, and if it's not an integer, tell them to give an integer or put it in a loop to make sure I get an integer. But that's not the point. The point I'm trying to teach you here is that once you get a number, then you can put the number inside a for loop. So instead of 7, you can have num times I equal to num times I. Okay, so num plus, so the variable num, whatever the user gives, it will generate that table, that times table. So which times table would you like to generate? I would like to generate one of 13, very difficult. And there you go, 13 times table. Great for kids. There, very useful example with the for loop. Let us look at the while loop. I have some examples that I would like to do. But just before we do that, while, I'm going to comment this out. And the slash star and the star slash. So when you download these examples, if you want to run it, just take these comment out. So this is a comment, right? This slash star and this star slash. So while a condition is true, you need to do something. Okay? I could try and write this thing with a while, but I'll try a simpler example. But just bear in mind the while loop has the condition tested before the structure, a pre-tested loop, as opposed to a do while loop, do while condition. Okay, so that's a post-tested loop. It's a pre-tested loop. Condition is tested before the loop runs. In this one, the condition is tested after the loop runs. Very important to remember these things. Especially from a theoretical point of view, you should be able to articulate these things. So let us look at some examples with a while loop, and I'll come back to do some more with the for loop. And let's just say we have got a variable a, which is at 10, and it should be num1, but I'll just say equal to 10 because some of your questions in the test have used variables like a, p, q. So let's say you've got the variable a10, and while a is less than, let's say, 50 or 15, I don't want to go too far. you can say a is equal to a plus 2 document dot write a, and let's put a break to it. So see, we're going to start from 10 and try to understand this even before running it. 10, it becomes 12. 12 less than 15, it'll write out 12. 12 less than 15, yes. It becomes, adds to 14. 14 less than 15, yes. And it will write out 14. Then add to 16, it will write out 16. 16 less than 15, no. So I'm going to cut this out for now. Save this and run this. Oh, that's just the alert for the times table. But there you go, 12, 14 and 16. And you can see it does write out 16. And these are the kind of things that you need to know for your exam. Just going to take this one out as well. So I started with a variable 10 and you check it. While 10 less than 15, yeah, 10 less than 15, is this evaluating to true? If it's true, let's go further. A is equal to a plus 2. So now what does a become here? A was 10. A has become a plus 2. A has become 12. So it writes out 12. Is 12 less than 15? Yes. So it makes it 14 and writes out 14. Is 14 less than 15? Yes. So it becomes a is equal to a plus 2, 16. It writes out 16, comes back. Is 16 less than 15? No. It exits the loop. There are a few things here, and I'll just do this whole example again with a different type. And you need to know things like document.write plus plus a. Okay. Now just bear in mind that in this example, the second one, you're starting with 10. Is 10 less than 15? Yes. This, because it's plus plus a, you will increment before a writes. So you will increment it before it writes. So the first output will be 11. I'm just going to comment this out on top. So the first line should be 11, right? But if I make it a plus plus, and this is very important to remember, the first output will be a and then it will add it. And so you can see the first output is 10 and then it starts adding it. So depending on where this plus plus is used for incrementing. Okay, so I'll let these examples be there, and you can have a look at them. Bear in mind, a plus 2, a is equal to a plus 2 can also be written as a plus equals 2. These two statements are identical, and you'll find this in some books, you'll find this in some books, you'll find this in some cases. Some teachers prefer this, some students prefer this. It's a matter of preference. Same thing. I learned it this way. I still have my head around this way, but yeah, I now am comfortable with this, so it's okay. But whatever, because you're learning, you just started, choose whatever you want, but know that both of them mean the same thing, and that if I was to put it in a for loop, you should be able to know that. So let's make another for loop. So let's say I have a counter, I starting at 5, as long as I is less than 7, less than or equal to 7, I plus plus, and let's say outside I have num equals 4. Now this is really just, if such a question comes across, you have to really, it's about trying to find out whether you can trace a loop, okay? And then you say num is equal to num plus 2. So such a question, how do you do such a question? And let me alert it out, alert num. So you might have a question like this that says, what will num be at the end of this? So it's important that you know how to trace a loop. Let me see how I would do it. You'll get a piece of paper and pen. You can't run the code in the classroom, okay? So this is going to start at 5. My counter starts at 5. Nothing to do with num. This is an independent counter. So it starts at 5. It will run for 5. It will increment. It will run for 6. It will increment. It will run for 7. It will run 3 times. Now what will this loop do 3 times? It will double num and add 2 3 times. So let's do it one time. Double num, 4 and 4 becomes 8, plus 2, 10. Cool. Let's do it again. 10 and 10 becomes 20, and add to 22. Let's do it again. 22 plus 22, 44 plus 2, 46. So I'm expecting 46 as an output. So let's see if that is true. So you can see 10, 22, 46. Because my alert was inside the for loop, it kept alerting each time. 10 after the first loop, 22 after the second loop, 46 after the third loop. But your code actually might have alert here. So you can see it'll just bang 46. You have to be able to see, okay, this piece of code is going to run so many times. It's going to start with this value. It will go to that value. Okay. So these are your loops, and you can have a look at the do while loop also, and I'll use the do while loop. So you can say do something while a less than 10, for example. So let's start with a equals 1. We'll start with a1. Now this is surely going to run once. Even if there's an if statement, it will go inside the bracket once. Even if there's an if statement that will stop it to go further, but it goes inside the bracket once. A is equal to 1. Let me start by saying a plus equals 2. So I'm adding 2 to a. So a will become 3. And then I'm going to document.write it. Document.write a. And I'll just put a break there. So I'm starting a with 1. I'm adding a plus equals 2, and I'm writing out a while a is less than 10. So you should be able to work on a piece of paper and say what the output will be. And in your notes, there are a lot of examples about what the output will be. Some of them are extremely complicated, but they're just good exercise. But that's not something that you can expect in the exam, really. So let's look at this. You're starting with a. What happens here? 3. You'll write out 3. 3 less than 10. Yeah. 5. 5 less than 10. 7. 7 less than 10. 9. 9 less than 10. 11. So I can expect a series from 3 to 11. So let's have a look at that. So you can say 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. This is the series coming from the bottom one. I'm just going to put a kind of break here. So I'm just putting these just so that you know what each output is for loop result. I'm just making this code a bit clear in case you decide to open it up and have a look at it. That's a while loop. And that's a user defined times table. Okay. In fact, even this, you can ask the user up till what value they want the times table. So instead of having num, you can have, instead of having this 16, you can have num I going all the way to num 2. So the user can define. So you can say, you tell me till what point you want I to go, and try that. So the user says, I want to see a table of 16 times 500. So this value here, this 16, should be 500, and you can take that, you can basically use another input, num2, and replace 16 by num2. So try it, have a play with this code. I've given it to you. Let me see if it works. So user defines times table. So I'm just going to say times table of 14. So the 14th time table, that's a for loop result, 46, and I've got a while loop and a do while loop. So a lot of examples in these loops, and bear in mind that be careful about the plus plus and the before and after. So we'll stop the loops lesson here.